Hey guys, welcome to the definitive ranking of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. This is a unique one.
Yeah.
Because it's so different.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have, I think mostly negative, I always hear.
Have you played this game recently before definitive ranking?
Not like in serious, I think. So my experience with it was I never really played the game. And then I got the collector's edition when I was pretty young. And I played it a little bit, and I'm sure my experience was like a lot of people where it's just immediately so ruthless that it kind of turned me off.
Yeah.
Right? And I was just like, no, this is not fun. Then I think it was shortly after I joined the staff, like 10 years ago, where I was like, okay, I'm going to finally beat this game. I've got collector's edition. There's ZeldaDungeon.net with the guide, and I went and did it, and it was honestly one of the most like satisfying game experiences when I actually beat it. It was still very frustrating.
Okay.
And that's like the last time I really played it was when I first joined. But I've always kind of liked it since then because of the like, wow, I overcame this game. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, like this is a game I didn't play back on the NES, like initially, like with the rest of them. Like it came after, I think it was Ocarina, that I went back and played Adventure of Link, and it was like, it's a little different. But I've actually played this game fairly regularly over the years, so it's like I've never had a long spell without playing it.
This is one now where you can kind of play through it like pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was still playing it in kind of chunks this time because it was still very challenging, but I did try to do it without a guide as much as I could, just to see, and it's clear that each time I'm playing it's still like getting better because it's been a long gap, and I played it this time and I rarely had to look stuff up or anything. So
okay,
it's one of those games that the more I play it, it's like warming up to me a little bit.
Yeah. So like, let's throw it through the machine.
Yeah.
The definitive ranking.
Watch the numbers.
Yeah, so let's talk about the world of The Adventure of Link.
All right, looks like everyone's in agreement here.
Yes. I gave it a 2.
Yeah.
And it was hard to gauge this one because like, does it do anything really bad, the world? Like, is the actual overworld, I think, is okay.
There's a couple so if we can talk about the bad a little bit first, because there are some things I think sometimes it's a little aggressive, just trying to get around, and there's stuff flying at you, which you know, it's good or bad. Just some of those screens are just awful, and I just like dread them. But okay, I get the idea. The main like negative thing about the world to me is, and there's only a few places where this really matters, but like where there's like specific places you need to go, but like they're totally hidden and there's not even a way to find it, specifically where you got to find the guy to do the bridge.
Yeah,
that's kind of how
Bagu, is it?
Bagu, yeah, Bagu. And the only hint, you don't get a hint of where he is, and the screen looks exactly the same. And I don't think does anyone ever mention like where that is? The only hint I got at the bridge is the guy says like only townsfolk may pass or something like that.
Okay, I think somebody says like Bagu's in the forest.
Oh, okay.
But like
a forest, there's a million forest screens. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not something I think of now because like I just know where he is at this point. Yeah.
I like sort of remembered that too, but it still was like that was one of the only times I really had to look something up,
Got it. Okay.
Other than that, like I didn't have a lot of negative stuff. Like I'm sure some people would say like Death Mountain was.
Okay.
Like just getting through that at that part of the game.
Yeah.
But even that I had no guide, and I didn't even remember the path through it, and I was like, I'm just gonna explore, and I actually just had kind of fun going through fighting the enemies.
Yeah.
So even that, I was like, no, this is fine.
Yeah. I do think the overworld, it's very blocked off. Like, you need the item from this dungeon, the candle, so you can see in caves, so you can progress. You need this spell. You need, it's like you have to basically clear all of West Hyrule before you go to East Hyrule, and even then you can't, so it's very, like, this is part 1 of the game, part 2 of the game, part 3, more so I mean, compared to like Legend of Zelda before, where it was totally open world.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little more.
There's still a lot of stuff you can get out of order, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it's got a good balance, I think, in terms of that.
I did like that there's actually characters in this game.
Characters and towns, which was cool. You feel like it's more of a real civilized place as opposed to like Zelda 1 or something.
Right. I do think, though, at the end of the day, the actual overworld map is just kind of awkward to me. I don't like when you start at the North Castle, there's like 4 places you can go, but they're just like kind of weirdly spread out.
Yeah.
And it's like
I don't think that, I don't know. It doesn't need to exist in that form, maybe.
It almost reminds me of the overworld from like Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is literally just to get to the next level.
Uh-huh.
In this case, caves. I mean, granted, there's enemy encounters when you're in the world, but I mean, like, it's like just a map.
I think if it was... Actually, I think that game Shovel Knight that came out it borrows from a lot of games, but it's got the Zelda 2 sort of gameplay, and I think they just made the map like Mario. Okay. Like the Mario map. And I think if you made a Zelda 2 type game now, like that's probably what you would just do, is like, because exploring the world is kind of fun, but sometimes it's tedious, you know. So and to the towns and the characters, like a lot of them are just a little bit bland. But there is some cool stuff in there. Like there's some quirky characters. There's Error.
Yes.
There's I like when you go to the towns that are like the eyes of Ganon are everywhere and they turn into the Keese or whatever. And, there's some little bits of like world building here and there, but then there's also just like, I'm thirsty or something.
Right,
and
yeah,
it's like,
get me water from the fountain that's right next to...
that's some of that stuff's lame.
Yeah. So let's move on to the art style. This is also one of those where there's 2 ways to look at this, because the actual graphical style is totally different, because it's a side-scroller. It's, I'd first like to talk about the actual art from like the box art and the official art.
Yeah.
It has a lot of the charm from the original Legend of Zelda. Not quite as much. There's less art for this game than Legend of Zelda, but it still has a lot of the monsters and enemies have their own unique artwork. I don't think it's as memorable, just because I think some of the enemies are not as memorable.
Yeah. Because a lot of them that's the only game they're in too.
Yeah, there's some of those. Yeah. I feel the art, it's still that classic original Zelda art that I like.
Yeah, I love that stuff. So and with the scenes in the story, that's always cool to see like these full scenes. I like that more than the individual art, is to see like, they're describing this backstory and you sort of, they bring it to life a little bit. Yeah. I love that.
And I think the graphical style, it's all right.
It's okay. Yeah, if it was based on that alone, probably be more towards the 2. I still like it. I love classic NES graphics. Like they remind, like that was the first console I had, so I'm always nostalgic for it.
I'm an NES fan, by the way.
Who would have thought?
Yeah,
you got Zelda 2 over here.
It's somewhere.
So like, even this isn't the best looking NES game, I think. But
it's an early NES game too, so
yeah,
it's still, there's like a total difference in graphics from early to late NES games.
I still think it looks pretty good, and it looks, I don't know, nostalgic.
Yeah.
I love the scene when you die and there's the silhouette of Ganon. Yeah, so just based on that alone, plus the artwork, I'll give it a good rating.
Yeah. So let's talk about the story. You hinted at it a little bit. It's much like A Link to the Past and The Legend of Zelda. Most of the story is not told in the game. It's told in the manual.
Yeah, there's a little bit in the game of like you find a child, or you find some magic potion or something that someone needs. A little side stuff, but there's really the backstory. And everyone else that kind of agreed. I don't know what I was going with here, but for me, I still think it's good. It's solid. It moves along. I do think it's a little bit more convoluted than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Compared to I would probably rate Zelda 1 higher, I think. So it's very straightforward. It's you know what you need to know. Here it's like, okay, you've got the story with they're trying to kill Link and get his blood to put on the ashes of Ganon, which I think is awesome. That was amazing alone.
Yeah.
Which that's enough, and it's like maybe you gotta go do something. But then there's this whole other backstory for
There's
the
like a
sleeping
prince
princess,
and a wizard, and
yeah,
and there's the king. Like there's all these characters in this story that make no appearance in the game,
and they're connected to a different Zelda who's sleeping, who you don't know. You know,
Yeah.
so it's a little too confusing, and you got to take the crystals to put. You know, that's a little much. So I just said it was good because I think all that stuff is cool, like on its own. The Ganondorf, the Ganon blood on his ashes is cool, and then also just that. You know, it's a pretty straightforward game. It keeps it going.
Yeah.
It's enough for me.
Do you feel like the story should there have been a Ganon in the game? Like an actual character?
No, actually, I think it's kind of cool that he's just kind of like a looming threat. Though I don't really understand the final boss or like what's the story on that? Like why is it Dark Link?
I don't know. You have to fight your own courage. It's something like that, probably.
Yeah, right. I don't know. There's definitely not. There's some plot holes here, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the choice to make it not Ganon is pretty cool, and to make it like he's trying to come back.
Yeah. Overall, I thought the story it's okay. It's not I don't think a positive for the thing, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. It's a little weird.
Even though I found it convoluted, I always just find it cool to just like go back and again look at the manual and look at all these scenes and stuff. So I think of it positively, even though it's not one that's like blowing my mind or anything.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the pacing and progression. And this is the one where I think the difficulty progression is a bit awkward in this game. It really is. And I think I will start with the Death Mountain portion is the part that stands out. So I remember when I first started playing this game, I used to always play level 1, and then I would play level 2, and then go to Death Mountain. Because it's like, you don't want to you're not ready for those orange and red dioras. And I remember even when I used to do it that way, it was like you get to Death Mountain, okay, this is Death City. This is like game over after game over after game over. And this is like back before the Switch where you can just rewind or whatever. Like this was playing on my Nintendo, like you die, and it's like back to North Castle.
Right.
And like you end up, I remember I'm like grinding basic enemies early in the game just so I can get powerful enough to go through Death Mountain. This is my experience from 20 years ago, like playing this game. And it just feels that part is just like such a scaled up difficulty that's kind of awkward, because I actually think the parts after Death Mountain, like level, are not as hard. It ramps up at the end again in the Valley of Death and the Great Palace, but I mean, like, there's this big spot that's way harder, I think, than everything else, and it's long to get through, and you have to...
Yeah, I would agree with that. I got lucky this time. Like I said, like I think I took the exact right path the first time I went through, so that wasn't... I mean, I still get that. I think another, even before Death Mountain, just a negative factor towards it is just how initially the game is. You do have to like even get a couple levels before things start to kind of feel normal and click into place. But maybe that's sort of intentional. There's
a huge learning curve to the combat. Actually, we'll get to that in a second. But that, I think, is related to this in a sense, because like you're gonna, the first time somebody's playing this game, they're gonna struggle a lot with just Parappa Palace, just because the controls. Not that there's nothing wrong with them, but it's just there's not that many super easy parts in the early part for a brand new player to this game.
Yeah, it's even I think probably frustrating to people just to have those basic enemies who are just like hopping across the screen constantly.
Yeah,
or it's like, even if you're just trying to like take a second to figure out what you're doing, where you are, it's like you can't even
right.
pause.
And even, like, it's kind of awkward. You get the candle from Parappa Palace. But in order to get to that candle, and also there's a few other caves you can go into, there's dark caves that there's enemies in that you can't see.
It might convince you that, like...
Oh, am I supposed to go here yet?
Yeah.
Am I ready for this? Like...
I think you could figure out the one cave. There's only, like, one enemy in there. But it's still kind of a signpost that's like, don't come here yet, almost. Right. But then someone says to get the... I don't know. But I went a little bit more positive just because... Maybe because I didn't have that issue, but also because I felt like the actual... Each dungeon, I felt like it was a little bit bigger, a little bit more complex.
For sure.
Harder enemies in each one. So as I was playing through it, and I played in smaller chunks, like each time I played, I was like, oh, wow, it's a little bit of a step up in this one. So, it wasn't amazing. Like I said, with Death Mountain, I would agree. But overall, I felt like, this game it's getting harder as I go on. And it got more, after you get through Death Mountain and you're in this next area, you can do things out of order. They get a bit more complex how you can do things in the overworld, so you can encounter harder things later, or harder things earlier, but you can go somewhere else instead. So I sort of like that it started off kind of smaller, got bigger and more complex.
Right.
So for me, it was still a pretty positive experience.
Yeah, and I would say that the level up system is totally built into this as a way, because that's your character's progression in a way. And I know in the Japanese version, I think things reset if you get game over or whatnot. But like in this one, it is a little annoying if you get game over when you're like, you've got 4,000 experience points or something. You needed like 100 more for. That's happened to everybody at some point.
Yeah.
It's like, back to I lost all my.
That's another thing I'm thinking about, and maybe this ties a bit more into gameplay, but is just knowing things now that I didn't know then. So I'm strategizing more with where I spend my points.
Okay.
And I never actually had that experience this time around, because anytime I was like close to being dead, but I needed a little bit more, I would try to find a safe place and just like grind some bubbles, you know what I mean?
Everybody who's ever played this game has grinded bubbles at some point.
I started doing that right away.
Yeah.
So like, but that's like knowledge I have now. But I mean, I'm ranking it based on my experience. So like, this is, again, if I play this game again in a year and ranked it, I'd probably give it even higher numbers, because I'm enjoying it more and more every time. Yeah,
I'm like mixing sort of my current, like if I play it today with the history of the game.
That makes sense too.
So, all right, so we touched upon the gameplay and the combat. I think this is the most unique thing about Zelda 2. And I like the combat. I do. I think it's hard. It's unique. I mean, it's just the side-scrolling aspect. And I think it's fun, and it's a rewarding...
once you learn how to kill certain enemies and...
Yeah. The reason I didn't go super positive on it, though, is... Well, there's two things. One, there's a lot of repetition. And once you realize that almost every single tough enemy in the game, you're just supposed to jump and attack them. Like the Dark Nuts, later on.
Is that what you're supposed to do?
Zalfos, or not Dark Nuts, Iron Knuckles. Like, you just jump attack, and it's an automatic hit.
Oh,
you didn't know this strategy.
I didn't do that.
Okay.
See, that's going to change it again.
Yeah. There's a little repetitiveness, and then this will get more into the enemies and bosses, but there's a lot of annoyance with some of these.
Okay.
So when you encounter a bubble early on in the game, like, let me kill this guy. Hit. Like,
I just stuck with it, though. I was like, I know he's gonna die.
It takes like 30 seconds to kill some of these things when you have a level 2 or 3 attack.
I don't think you're supposed to try to kill those in the beginning.
Why do they have so much health? Why? I don't understand. Even when you're fully upgraded, they take multiple hits.
Okay, yeah.
Like, it seems like a very odd thing. And there's some of the other enemies, especially some of the the enemies that just appear from the screen and scroll and like do this kind of stuff and shoot fire at you, or the Medusa head kind of things. I think that fits into the gameplay a little bit, and it's frustrating at times. So that's the knock on it. Otherwise, if it wasn't for those things, this might have been a 5 for me.
Yeah. I also think this is now I'm thinking of like what are its contemporaries. Like there are probably better NES games that have combat, like side-scrolling combat. I think of like your Castlevanias or like Ninja Gaiden.
Is
Yeah,
a good one. That has very good combat.
You know,
it's a lot smoother.
So even then, it's like I feel like this is just doing it really solid. But like I see where there could be even just in the basic gameplay, not the like glaring flaws you said, but like the basic gameplay, where it could feel a lot better. And maybe it's also not fair, but I was also thinking about like modern games now that are inspired by it that have like run with it, but like kind of improved those things.
Right.
So
yeah.
I just there's room for improvement with that. And then there's obvious like just little stuff that I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't like about it, which are like getting knocked into the lava pits.
Yes.
And
oh yeah.
I tried with this one to not like rewind or anything because I wanted to grade the game on itself. So I was still feeling that, but I think I'm also thinking like you could eliminate if they ever like redid it, you could eliminate that from the game pretty easily. And so if you want to play this game now and do the rewind type thing and not think about it again, that seems pretty fair to me too.
Right.
In terms of like those type of cheap deaths the game has. So
yeah, and also it became a staple in the Zelda series and later on there is a kind of a lack of puzzles in this game. They don't really exist. I guess the only puzzles is in terms of just navigation through the palaces, knowing where to go. So, like, not that The Legend of Zelda had that many puzzles to begin with, the first one.
There's a couple, like, the palace has a hidden wall, or, like, go to the edge of town and do this or whatever,
Right, yeah. Puzzles, like, use the spell to make some random building appear for some reason.
Yeah, the king's finding the secret thing south of the king's tomb. It's very straightforward. Yeah.
Air tells you that, I think. Go south of King's Tomb. I think
good old error in a second bit of dialogue.
So items and abilities. There are no items in this game.
Well, there are.
You get
items. You get the hammer. You get the flute. You get the power glove.
It's like there's no
raft.
There's no like equipable item.
Yeah.
Like you can use them in combat. I guess
that's again another example where I was thinking of like more. Even it's contemporaries and even more modern games where they've made it a bit more versatile. You know? In this, like you're just always swording guys.
Yeah. I mean, you do have the abilities is the spells. You get a whole bunch of them, but I feel that some of them are just like they're not. They don't. I don't think enhance the gameplay at all, or they don't. I don't know. Like the defense spell. It's like useful.
I like that. All right, actually, I feel like that would maybe be better as a potion or something you could get, or I like the defense. I like the health. Obviously, is great, but they just feel like you really need them. Yeah, more than anything.
I feel like the defense should have been just an upgrade. You get a new tunic, like a third through the game. And you've got permanent defense upgrade. And then maybe 2/3 through the game you get another tunic upgrade. Sort of like the rings and the tunics in past and other Zelda games. Like that makes more sense to me. It's like when you have to selectively use when you want to cast your defense. Because I don't really use it other than at bosses. Because almost all of my magic is almost always being used to refill my life.
Yeah.
And the only time because it's I think annoying to use the jump spell. Like, you don't want to play with the jumps, so you only use it when you have to. Yeah. Like, I never use the fairy spell unless I have to.
Yeah. There's some rooms where it's like, you want to.
Yeah, but it's like you never... They cost so much magic when you need that magic for life.
I did, like, between shield and life, there was some times where I felt like it was kind of fun to manage my magic.
Okay.
Where I'd have a little sliver of health, and I'd also have a little sliver of magic. So I go, okay, I'm gonna use the shield now, but then, you find a magic pickup and you're like, okay, so I can do, where you like having to make some decisions with how you're going to use it. Like, okay, if I use the health now, then pick up this magic, then I'll be full, or little stuff like that. But it wasn't like that in depth or anything. But
Right.
it did feel like good to like get the magic pickup right when you needed it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, most of the spells you don't want to use. There's like I never used the fire one.
Oh, the fire spell is actually optional. You don't need it.
Oh, okay.
That's
kind of cool, I guess.
That kills certain enemies, and that's the only way to kill them. It's kind of cool. I like it. Does that need to be a spell? Could that have just been an upgrade where, 2/3 through the game you get it, and your sword just shoots fire permanently, kind of thing? Like,
right.
That
Reflect also wasn't very.
Reflect is just for Karak, the boss, and for the Wizrobes.
Yeah, maybe you could have just gotten a mirror shield or something.
Yeah. Like, why not just... Because it's one of those... Because that one uses also a lot of magic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you enter a room, you see Wizrobes. Okay, do I want to use like half my magic or a third of my magic just to kill these 2 Wizrobes to get the 200 experience points?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing there's going to be more Wizrobes in the next room. Like, you have to repeatedly use it every screen. And...
Even downward and upward thrust?
Well, that's the thing. So I think the items and abilities are not very good.
Uh-huh.
But the downward thrust to me is one of the most satisfying. Like
it is satisfying, but it also it works in this game too because
it's like a pogo stick
with the progression, But like, there's plenty of games I feel like where you would just have that.
Okay.
They're like that just seems like something you should probably just be able to do
from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I'm okay with the way it is implemented because it's just I love it. I like
when you get it, it feels good because now like it's a game changer.
I love just like jumping in. It's like I said, like a pogo stick. You just hopping over people. It's fun. I like it.
It's DuckTales.
Yes, yeah.
And Shovel Knight. Actually, yeah.
DuckTales. Yeah.
I'm just saying you can play one of those 2 games. And it's satisfying the whole time.
Yeah.
You could just always pogo stick.
Yeah. So let's talk about the dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
We both gave it a 3.
Yeah. I think they're solid. I do. They're a little bland in terms of like, they're just you got different color palette walls. But they got the thing I like about Zelda games in terms of exploring. Like, okay. I got a key here, and, navigating where to spend your keys, that kind of thing. Oh, I got to get the key item, which you can also miss, which is kind of fun, actually.
You can beat dungeons without getting the item and then get kind of screwed over later.
There were some complicated dungeons where I found the boss. I happened to find the boss, like, super early, but then, like, had to explore around and... It was actually a lot tougher to find the item,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like that aspect of it, but yeah, I will say, it's a little bland. There's not like any exciting puzzles or you know. And then there's annoying things like you go to the end of a room and then you gotta backtrack, which I don't mind, but when it's just a long scrolling room of nothing, it's whatever. I'm not too negative about it.
Most of the palaces are pretty like they're pretty big but it doesn't take very long to get any one place really. So it's just and it's a pretty fast moving game.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think the backtracking is really bad.
Yeah.
Plus you want to be killing enemies because experience is.
It's more when you have gone through an area where you can like fall.
Yes.
And I'm like,
lava is the killer.
I just don't want to go back through that area.
I do think they do a great job. We talked about this in progression where the expansion of the dungeons, like Parappa Palace is so small, really, when you look at the map. But by the time you're at the hidden palace, like the later ones, it's pretty good. And then you're like walking through walls in the Ocean Palace. And there's so many extra corridors that you never need to go to if you don't want to. That have just tough enemies to get experience points and whatnot. It's I think they're okay. I don't think it's I kind of like them, but I would like to say you get to the Great Palace, and it has a lot of what I also like about Death Mountain from Legend of Zelda, the skull, the final dungeon, where it is like a giant labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And like I know where to go now, so I know the exact route, but it is a very specific route you have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, you can make a wrong decision at the very beginning, where like it branches off and there's two ways, and if you go the wrong way, even on the wrong side, it branches off multiple ways, but they all lead to dead ends.
Dang,
And
that's pretty brutal.
Like 2/3 of the dungeon is hidden on this side, like of the palace. So it's like, and a lot of the rooms look similar. In some cases, they're identical. So it's like you don't really know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
like the ultimate test.
Yeah, but not only that, like what I love about Final Dungeons, and we'll get to this with enemies, is there's a lot of unique enemies there too.
Yes, yeah.
So many that are exclusive to the last palace.
Right.
And it's got its own music too, and it's like really a tough challenge. Even for me now, I still die sometimes in the Great Palace. I think it's one of the best dungeons in the series, actually.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot. I guess we should have mentioned it's good that if you die there, you start over. I meant to mention that in gameplay, that's another thing kind of holding it back is the checkpointing and stuff. But again, now modern consoles, you can just rewind, save state, whatever, you know.
It makes you wonder, why did they had this ability? You get to the Great Palace, you can start, and you get game over, you start at the Great Palace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand dying in the overworld or in a cave or in a battle sequence, but why, if you get game over in the middle of a dungeon, do you have to go back to the North Palace? Because a lot of times you're literally just walking on the path, so there's no enemies. Like, it's pretty safe overall. There's a few, but it's like, just spawn you at the dungeon. At the like,
you remind me of another time that I used like save state or rewind, which was to get to a specific dungeon. It was such a trek to get there, and I had proven to myself multiple times I could get there with full hearts and everything. And even when you get there, you can hit those statues, and one out of every whatever million will give you health or potion that you can use to recharge, and you can just grind that out. So eventually I was like, I'm not gonna grind this out. I know I can do it. You know, it's not a question of the challenge. You know, so I save stated there because I was like, forget it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know? So that's something. Why not just when you die, you start at the beginning of the dungeon? Anyway,
yeah.
Great Palace is good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did talk about the enemies briefly.
Yes.
And I think they're okay. Like
I'm surprised that I'm a bit more positive.
So there are so many good enemies, but there's so many annoying ones. This goes back to those things that just crawl on the screen, especially when you're like trapped. You know those rooms where
blocks.
You have to kill. Yeah, you have to break the blocks to get a key.
Awful.
So
awful.
It's like you're literally walking, and one guy comes. You're hitting blocks. Oh, you got a block. Now there's 3 of them. You accidentally turn around for a second, so now there's some coming from both sides.
Yep.
It's frustrating. Then there's the Medusa heads. I forgot what they're called. The Moas. Whatever they are. You know what I'm talking about. They have those patterns.
And they knock you into the lava. Yeah. I guess I didn't even think of them when I scored. I just think of them as like obstacles more than anything. Because I like the actual like combat enemies you have.
There's the Iron Knuckles, the Lizalfos. They're very similar to one another.
Yeah, the Stalfos I like a lot.
Yeah, they're cool.
I like the... I mean, this is something we'll criticize about other games, I think, but like, you know, the upgraded versions of them really do feel like an upgrade.
Yeah.
And I even like some have like minor changes, like the Stalfos or like wearing helmets at some point, right? Like I just like that.
The mace throwers, I like those.
Mace throwers are cool.
Like the hammerheads.
I like all the unique ones in the Great
Palace.
Palace.
There's the Doom Knocker, I think, where he just throws an axe and it comes back.
Yeah, that one's fun to like downward thrust on him.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. The enemies there's the what are they, the Folka, I think.
Yeah.
They're like the super Iron Knuckles, I think, where they're jumping around and the blue ones shoot sword. Like they're so powerful.
They're a cool enemy.
Yeah.
That's one I want to see come back.
And then there's maybe I'm mixing the two names. There's the ones where they're like a firebird where they're just shooting.
Oh yeah, they're like
hopping around.
Yeah, those are freaky. Those freak me out.
Yeah, The Great Palace also has like the giant bubble, the giant bot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of enemies late in the game.
Yeah, there's a bit of repetition, but I think the enemies they have are all very cool. So that's where I came down on that.
Compared to most 2D games on like the NES, though, I felt some of the bosses were a little underwhelming.
Yeah, there were some I liked a lot. Just for one, in terms of design, like a horse head is super cool, I think.
Okay.
Just like a dude with a big old horse head.
Yeah.
I liked this is the one boss that it's just an iron knuckle.
He starts out on a horse.
Yeah, I love that. It's like the boss of the iron knuckles, and then he becomes a mini boss.
Yeah.
So some I just think like that look cool, but then there are others that are a little underwhelming.
Karak, or it's like the giant whiz rope. You just sit in the corner and reflect him to death.
Yeah.
I mean, Horsehead, which is not actually his official name, but people call him Horsehead. And then there's Helmet Head, which is also not his official name, but like they're very similar. You literally just jump at him in the head. It's like just like an advanced version. So it's like, it would have been nice to have some more unique stuff.
Yeah.
That being said, some of the later bosses I like. Barba, or as he was retconned and known as Volvagia.
Okay, that one's okay to me. I kind of just stood in one spot.
The boss battle's not that fun, but it's a dragon, fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah.
And then Thunderhead is awesome.
Thunderhead, yeah.
Thunderbird.
Yeah, I was like, Thunderhead.
Thunderhead is Skyward Sword. We'll get to that later.
Thunderbird, it just sucks there if you don't have the magic.
Yeah, it's like stupid. If it's your last life and you get there and you don't have enough magic. Oh, sorry, game over. But
yeah.
There's some spots on the left where there's enemies, but like it's yeah. I will say Shadow Link at the end is fun.
Yeah.
It's
a cool, taking away the trick to beating him.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, I gave it a 2, not because like I think it's bad, but like I'm thinking of this in the context of the Zelda series.
Okay.
So I think
I see.
There's not enough that really stands out to me compared to other games.
For me, I was like, it's good because there are a lot of like the Falca type enemy, like stuff that I think is really cool, but there's just not that diverse. Like I want to like it more than I do, So I went more positive on it just because I really like it.
All right, so this one, this is one that, like throwing Adventure of Link into the machine, it spits out some bad numbers because side content and extras like kind of don't exist in this game. There's some extra caves with extra experience points.
That is cool. I like that.
And it's actually kind of necessary for your first time through because...
Yeah, I think you get by without it, but...
There's like the one-up Link dolls you find.
Those make me mad a little bit because... that's another thing I was thinking, like, if they did this now, they should just redo it. Because how many of those are there?
There's like 5, I think, something like that.
I think if you just find one, you should just permanently have a life added.
So, like if you get game over, you just start with 4.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I like that idea.
Half the time I would find those because I'm exploring the world, which was fun, but I'm, like, losing lives, gaining experience, whatever. And then I find one because I'm just casually exploring, and I'm like, okay, I'm on my last life. Like, this does nothing but extends my, slog through the swamp right now.
Yeah. And plus, I think if you get game over, and you go back to them, they're no longer there, so they're only one-time gets.
Yes.
So you can't strategically get them.
If that was true, like they came back, that would also be cool, maybe, because you could at least okay, I'll go get these picked up, so I'm strong. But I think just permanently add them or something.
Yeah, like you would think the magic containers are optional, but no, you need all of them.
That's another thing. It's like I felt like that whole time finding heart pieces, magic containers, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a neat, collectible. Like you can compare that more to the games before and after, where it's like not a lot of side content, but you did have these upgrades that were cool, but they're really necessary, but then they're literally necessary. So it was like,
I don't know if you need all the heart containers.
I know, but the magic you do for that one spell, right? So.
Yeah. Well, you have to get the spell.
Yeah.
You need all the magic containers, I think. So
That drove me nuts. Yeah.
It seems like it would make sense to get the Thunder spell. I think you need all of them. That's one
of the spells.
Yeah. The thing that like it would have been cool if instead of 8 heart containers and magic containers, if there was like 12.
Okay.
So then there was extra ones for you to find that enhance the game. Especially it's not like this game is that easy. So that would be a cool addition.
Yeah.
The fire spell is optional, although it doesn't have the appearance of it being optional, I think, because most people think you need it because, like, I can't kill these enemies. You don't have to kill them. You can jump over them or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe some additional abilities would have been nice. It's just lacking in the extras category.
Yeah. There's just really nothing about it that other than finding those experience, because that's cool, just peppering some of that around. But it wasn't enough to make me think like they did anything good with it.
So this was by far the lowest any category that the community and staff have picked for any game to date. So, which, yeah.
It says something.
Yeah, and one thing, with our staff picks, this, not as many people played Adventure of Link as previous games. So, not like every staff member didn't vote on this. There was, for the majority of the categories, nobody put a 5 for anything, and nobody put a 4 for anything.
Wow.
So there was, except for the music and sound.
Yeah.
We did get some 5s on this one. And I was personally hovering between 4 and 5 on this one.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't pull the trigger on giving it a 5. But why did you give it a 4?
Well, I think it's great. Like, I think just from the outset, it starts amazing. It has like an amazing opening cinematic and music. I don't know, most of the songs in it feel like that, or there's grand, epic, like, where it's like, why haven't these come back?
Yeah.
They're like hidden gems almost.
I think there's only 6 songs in this game.
Uh-huh.
And all 6 of them are awesome. I think the title screen is great. The Overworld is fine. It's kind of a remix of,
I like that one.
The town theme is so peaceful.
Yeah.
The battle sequence gets your adrenaline rush going.
Mm-hmm.
Then the palace is fantastic. That did come back in Smash Brothers. They did like a remake of it.
It's a great version of it.
And then the Great Palace has its own custom theme as well.
They all call for exactly, like, the palace themes are so heart pumping, and they like really get you going to go right and left. You're like, yeah, let's do this.
Do you find yourself like humming the themes too, like while you're like,
yeah? Some of those songs have parts that are like absolutely crazy, like in terms of like, well, I know it's not like no one played this, but thinking I've seen people play certain versions of these songs, and like certain parts of them require you to go like nuts, like in the palace theme, the regular palace theme, where it just starts going like, and you're like, what is going on here? It just like shocks me when I'm playing it, and because you're already like going and heart's pumping, and then the song just goes crazy out of nowhere, and I was just like, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah. So the only thing that kept me from giving it a 5 is just it's a small soundtrack.
Yeah,
that's the only reason, because like
it does eventually. It's with a lot of these games where eventually it's like, okay, I've heard this a lot.
Yeah. I don't get annoyed by them though. There's no song that like, oh god, this is playing again still. So I just like this is one of those things where it's almost a perfect soundtrack to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are better soundtracks in the Zelda series. Some of them I've given 5s to already. Mm-hmm. So it's like this is just a notch below. So.
Yeah, which it's of its time, So, but maybe if there's some more town themes, or like,
or if each dungeon had its own theme,
or maybe just like in sets, maybe the first couple have one, and they ramp it up and then ramp it up. Yeah,
East Hyrule had a different more advanced overworld or something too.
Yeah,
if they, they could have done something like that.
Yeah, so there's room for improvement.
So our final scores, I would like to think that this community, staff, you and me, we were almost even across the board with our final rankings.
This is where the interpretation matters, though, because like I gave this what I think is a pretty good score, but I think other people, when they say they gave it a 2.7, they're like they're ranking it pretty bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the irony here is that you and I both had it tied with Twilight Princess.
Yes, yeah.
And if you would have asked me before, like, what do you think? Where do you think Adventure of Link fits? I would be like, oh, it's probably one of the middle of the road games for me. I like Adventure of Link. I really like this game. And if you would have said, how would you compare it to Twilight Princess? I would have for sure said, I think I liked Adventure of Link more than Twilight Princess. But because we threw it through the numbers machine, they came out the same. But so one of our rules were, if on our personal list, if we have the exact same score, we get to pick. And we both put Adventure of Link one spot up.
So I put it because it's definitely, I mean, I'm showing this is based on my experience playing it. Like, the more I play this game, the more I like it. And the more I play Twilight Princess, like, there's definitely a bottom. Like, I'm not just gonna like hate this game or anything, but like it's definitely like similar to like not a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is like the representation of like where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I in fact, the funny thing is, I would have said I'd like Adventure of Link more than Wind Waker too, but the system.
You can't argue with the system.
The system is not broken here. So,
I mean, what? It's a 0.1 point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
whereas I think we found a new bottom for both the community and the staff. I think I made a comment after I think it was after Spirit Tracks, where it's like, this is the new base. Like, the range is going to be between 3.4 and 4.2. I think it's still going to be between those numbers, with the exception being Adventure of Link. I don't think anything will be anywhere close to this. This will be on an island, I think, by the time things are all
you
said
think
and
so?
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be some games that can.
I don't think so. I think the community has spoken, and their voice has definitely been heard that Adventure of Link is not one of the upper echelon Zelda games.
So we see with everyone but us that there's a clear, right now, or not clear, but the bottom is Seasons, Spirit Tracks, Zelda 2.
But we have Adventure of Link, Twilight Princess, Spirit Tracks. And I feel bad that Adventure of Link is that low, because like I said, it's I think it's the side content that did it in, and the items and abilities that did, like, I can't give those, as much. If this was my favorite game in the world, I still couldn't give the side content a 5 or 4.
Well, this also goes to show how everything is subjective.
It is,
like,
yeah.
These categories we made up, like some of the like side content and extras. Is that a factor for you when you're thinking about how much you like the game? Probably not, right?
In some games, yes, but like, I think the criteria fits the majority of Zelda games very well. I think Adventure of Link might fall through the cracks.
Yeah, for me it did factor, but just not as negative as it affected the score. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, that's going to do it for the definitive ranking of the Adventure of Link. But next month, we're going to be covering The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. And in particular, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch remake of it.
Yes.
So we're not sure if we're going to cover both of them eventually, because they're a little different. But we're definitely covering the Switch version of Link's Awakening for the month of July. So as always, there is a poll in the description below. Have your voice be heard, and we will reveal those results for the community section during the next month's video. But yeah, we'll see you guys later.